Can I ask the Minister for the Department of Infrastructure if he'll make a statement on the progress of the Promenade scheme?
Then I call the Minister, Mr Harmer.
Thank you, Mr President. Significant progress has been made on the Promenade since I last had the opportunity to update the Court in April. Major utility replacements are underway. The first part of the rail corridor has been completed and road construction has started in both the southern and northern ends of the Promenade. In addition, the arrangements for the TT worked remarkably well from a traffic perspective and horse tram service was brought into operation. Temporary car parking has been added to the north end at Summerland, the walkway and at Castle Mona to support businesses and residents. That said, progress has been slower than expected and I believe the project is around 9 to 10 weeks behind schedule. This is a complicated project and this delay has been caused by many interrelated factors. Not least of these factors is the extensive number of service challenges being identified during road excavations. Although the project did plan for unexpected service-related issues, the number of changes have been in excess of what reasonably could have been anticipated. From the outset, the Department has worked in close cooperation with all the utility and service providers, and it is accepted that replacing and increasing the resilience of the in-road infrastructure is the right thing to do. To ensure maximum coordination, members of the Department's project team, the MUA and the main contractor all share the same open plan office facilities. Some of the difficulties around the scale of replacing underground services, particularly as the old infrastructure must stay in the ground and operational until the new service has been fully installed and commissioned. The new service cannot therefore be laid in the same place as the old water pipes, foul drains, storm drains, electrical cables, gas pipes, telecom fibres, traffic signal cables, street lighting and telecoms cables. In other words, the service in the grounds doubles even before the new infrastructure to future-proof the promenade is added. Unfortunately, it's not possible to know where all of the services are and have all of this been planned in advance. Some of these services were installed 70 years ago, and in many cases, records simply do not exist. Trial holes were dug once the outline design was approved by Tynwald to minimise the risk by identifying some of the main service locations, but service members will understand that this site is over 65,000 square metres in area, and something as simple as a drain being a few feet higher than expected in one location can lead to a major redesign of multiple service routes. As you would expect, once utility providers have seen exactly what is in the ground, they want to take the opportunity to rationalise and add resilience to their networks. For example, 2 new additional water mains have been added to Lock and House promenades. One of them will increase the number of fire hydrants available to emergency services. With respect to communications, capacity for 5G has been added. Many of you will be aware that little progress has been made on the rail corridor since TT. This is because of 2 significant technical problems were identified. First, cracking was identified in the new concrete. This could be a design or construction issue, but to guard against it, a new method of construction has been introduced by the design of the rail corridor. Secondly, initial running of the horse tram showed the noise of the horse tram to be louder than expected. The design of the rail corridor has implemented these changes and mitigation action is being taken. Construction of the rail corridor has now restarted. Although disruption cannot always be avoided, we must do everything we can to mitigate the impact, to work with local businesses and adapt to the issues we encounter. We need to ensure that our communications are the best that they can be to improve wherever we can. We are making good progress on addressing the issues we face, and I am keen to make sure that our sites are as active as busy as possible. These issues and others have put significant workload on the project. To help deal with this, the MUA has deployed extra resources and additional 4 highways design engineers have been assigned to help the project through this challenging period. The main contractor has also engaged a specialist programme consultant and additional procurement support to help improve its productivity on site and recover the time lost. The promenade was in a terrible state, both in engineering and visibility. Although the project is complex, difficult and requires significant upheaval, when finished, the Douglas Promenade will be once again an incredible asset. The engineering put right and the prom will be an enjoyable place to spend time, a sustainable travel corridor and a great welcome to the Isle of Man.
Supplementary, Mr. Callister.
Thank you, Mr. President. I've got two supplementary questions to the Minister. I firstly thank him for his response this morning, but my focus of attention is on some of the mistakes which the Minister has already highlighted. The first question, I want to make sure I say them very clearly so the Minister can actually respond to them. First question I want to ask the Minister is with regard to the newly laid concrete, which the Minister has already highlighted, with regard to some cracking. Can I ask the Minister exactly how much of the laid concrete will have to be lifted and who will be financially liable for carrying out those works and the timescale involved? My second question, Mr. President, to ask the Minister, it relates to the 9 to 10 week delay that the Minister has actually said this morning, and it was on a Manx Radio interview yesterday. Can I ask the Minister how exactly they intend to catch up this 9 and 10 weeks, and will it be at the detriment of local businesses that are already struggling on the Promenade?
Minister to reply.
Thank you. At this stage, no concrete, on the first element of the question, at this stage, no concrete will be removed. It will be removed. It will be monitored over the coming months, and any issues will be at between the design and the contractor. It will be paid for by them. Regarding the 9 to 10 week delay, obviously there's a number of different ways that we can. The main thing is to get the tram corridor correct and get that moving. That seam work in that area will vastly improve the work sites, but there are a number of different approaches that we can take, obviously with more resources that we have put in place in terms of specifically highways and utilities, and getting those engineers to actually identify, because a lot of the work you have to look at where the bottlenecks are, and the particular bottlenecks are specifically around designing, because you may plan to put a pipe or the new pipe or whatever, or the comms at a particular position, but if there are existing works in there, you have to redesign. That means new drawings, new detail sheets, and that's where we're concentrating our efforts. By speeding that work up, we believe that can then allow us to gain some of those times. And we've always expected, if you like, the unexpected. It's just the quantity that we've had over the last few weeks.
Supplementary, Mr. Robert Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. President. Complications were always expected, the Minister says. It was always going to be a complex task. So why on earth did he choose to overstretch himself to the degree that he did? He talks about looking forward to when the job is finished. Does he not accept the fact that there's so much confusion down there now, both running ahead of himself and complications behind, that he could well find that a number of businesses down there are finished before he has? And does he not wish to take this opportunity now to apologise profusely to the businesses that are in dire difficulties because of the mismanagement of such an important project?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. President. Some of those areas that we're talking about, we were always going to, so for example, always do those works around Loch Promenade in June. So there was always going to be disruption. This is always a difficult project to undertake. I know we made a decision that rather than taking 5 weeks and having even more disruption, more delay, more work over 5 years, that actually completing it over 2 years would be much, much better. This is a complicated project. There will be disruption. We are behind. We obviously intend to recover that time so that we complete on time. So in terms of, and I think that's the best approach, rather than taking a 5-year approach that would just cause more disruption. So I do think we always said right from the word go that we need to show mettle, we need to show resolve. When we make a decision like this, there will always be disruption, there will always be issues faced, and it's our job to resolve those. And where we have found those issues, they have been resolved. And that is the right thing to do. But I think we need to take the context of the overall project taking 2 years rather than taking an inordinate length of time that has been quoted in the past. So we're talking about fractions of 2 years rather than 5 or 10 years.
Honourable Member Mrs. Beecroft.
Thank you, Mr. President. My understanding that some of the length of time the project is taking and the cost is related to the fact that the foundations of the promenade had failed, and so you needed to go down to a deeper level and rectify it really right from the foundations all the way up. Could the Minister confirm that this is what has taken place, that actually it has gone right down to the foundations in all cases up to date, and that it will continue to do so in the work as it goes forward?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. President. We are completely restructuring the promenade. It's what we said we'd do. We said we'd go right down to the absolute basis to do with the services. I just think that we must have a sense of in any engineering project, and it doesn't matter what it is, to expect no issues, no delays is not realistic, particularly when you're talking about something that is over 90 years since we've done anything to it. So a lot of the things that are in there are not even planned. And if I take sort of the fire hydrants and so forth, that was an issue that when an issue was found, rather than just replace exactly what was there, obviously they took the opportunity to say we need to improve what we put to UK regulations. We're putting 5G in, we're putting fibre optics. I think we need to remember what this will be in a year's time, which will be a fantastic asset that we've all said needs to happen. But to expect there not to be any issues, or to expect that for example, with the tram tracks and so forth, but the issues have been resolved, they've been taken forward, and they will be resolved. But to expect there not to be any issues is, I do feel, is not realistic. It's part of a normal engineering project that we have this.
Honourable Member for Middle, Mr. Shimmons.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Minister will be aware that I raised questions and concerns about the length of time these works would take back in January 2018. What message has he for the previously successful businesses which have been badly damaged by the priority being given to the loss-making horse tram service? The horse tram service, of course, is an ongoing financial drain on the public purse. Is it not now the time to cancel the horse tram service for the summer to speed up these works?
Minister.
Thank you. Taking the first question, the last question first, whether we stop or start the horse trams isn't actually pertinent to whether the delays in the project. They're only running a small section of them. Our main focus is now to get the tram tracks completed. You'll see concrete pouring started on the base last week. The main concrete pouring is starting today. That will then actually see a massive reduction in that 400 metres. So over the next 3 to 4 weeks, some of that, if you like, the Harris fencing will be massively reduced, and we'll obviously see a lot of the prom return back to normal. I think we also need to remember the successful TT that we had and how there was very little disruption. We also have to remember the number of people that said there would be traffic chaos on the prom and so forth, but that hasn't transpired. There's been many positive things, and I would just urge members to, obviously there are issues, and obviously that have been, the solutions have been found. We're right in the middle of a project, and we're progressing, and I would very much hope that we make good all of the time that we've lost.
Supplementary, Mr. Callister.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think businesses and the whole island accept that this work has to be undertaken. We get that. What's actually happening is the clear lack of communication. I mean, the Minister has already mentioned this morning that they put in place 400-metre corridors, but that was not explained to the businesses who were cut off, and people parking on the promenade were unable to access those businesses at certain times. Can I ask the Minister to give a very clear answer in respect of those faults? Can he give reassurance that those faults will be repaired at some point, if not in the winter months? Can I also ask the Minister to actually to put on record how many times he personally, as the Minister, has been down onto the promenade and spoke to those businesses and listened to those concerns?
Minister to reply.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think communication is something we're going to very seriously look at, and I think there is a lot of communication all the time, but obviously where we can improve, and also work with the Department for Enterprise and Visit Isle of Man in terms of improving their communication. I thank the member and the Department of Enterprise on their help with other schemes to help businesses on the prom. Obviously, I'm very sympathetic with businesses on the prom, and we need to come together as a government and help businesses as much as we can. We did, obviously, back in May, we looked at improving the parking around Castle, improving the parking at the far end, and we will do everything to minimise the disruption. But a lot of the disruption was planned and is part of doing the prom, and you can't avoid disruption when we're dealing with such a major infrastructure project, because at the same time all of those services, all of the water, the gas, electricity, all has to work while you're effectively, if you like, doing surgery on the prom. So it is a complicated project. Like I said, we will minimise absolutely as much as possible. We will talk to businesses. It is about all of the communication day to day with the team, and we will work with the Department of Enterprise to make sure that we are communicating fully.
Mr. President, I'm sorry. I asked a clear question. I know the Minister can answer in any way he said. I've asked the Minister very clearly how many times he has met the businesses on the promenade to give that and put it on Hansard today. I've also asked the Minister for reassurance that the affected concrete will be lifted and repaired at some point in the future.
So I've answered the second part already. We don't plan to replace the concrete at the moment. We are monitoring it, and we will monitor it over the time. If it needs to be replaced, we will do that. I have talked to a number of different people on the prom, but I don't recall the exact number of times, but I think you're missing the point. There's a number of different people that are involved. It's effectively the contractor is now doing the promenade. It involves the contractor, it involves our own staff, and involves a number of different communication channels. And so it's not about one person building the prom. It's about a team effort. It's about a contractor. It's about a team delivering the prom.
I appreciate this is a subject of considerable interest to members, and I have 4 more supplementaries on my list, and then we'll have to move on. Miss Bettison.
Thank you, Mr. President. In the absence of an apology to the businesses from the Minister, I wonder if perhaps he could look at more practical support to them. One of the things that he raised in the project impact assessment that he gave in answer to a previous question in another place was around rates rebates for those businesses affected, and yet when they've contacted directly, they've been advised that as Treasury and the Corporation can't come to any agreement, there are in fact no rates rebates, but they can appeal to the Rent and Rating Appeals Commissions. I wonder if we could perhaps have a more joined-up approach regarding this to actually resolve this as a starting point, and if he would commit to undertake that.
Minister.
Thank you. And don't get me wrong, I apologise for the disruption caused in the prom. It's not our intention to cause any disruption and to minimise it absolutely as much as possible. Do not misunderstand me. This is an important project. We've all agreed that needs to happen. It's important. At the end, it will be a fantastic gateway to the island. It's always hardest when you're right in the middle of something in engineering, because one of the problems is, at the moment, a lot of the work has happened underneath the ground, and so it's not visible. Some of the benefit that you'll get, and I have to say the context of 9 weeks within a 2-year project, some of the benefit is only realised right at the end. So we've been looking at artwork, for example, on the cultural area, which will be absolutely amazing. That cultural area will be a jewel, a shining jewel for the island, and I need to focus on that. In terms of rebates, I noticed that we haven't had the most positive response from the corporation, but we will work with businesses to get through that and to have some joined up, because I completely agree it should be an automatic thing, and I will work with Treasury and with everybody we can to mitigate the disruption. I can't avoid the disruption, but we will try and mitigate it as far as possible.
Mr. Robert Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. President. So far the Minister has admitted that they are significantly overrunning time-wise on the promenade. They've also admitted that in terms of closed sections they have overstretched themselves. He's also admitted that the fact that they have seriously underestimated the amount of work, even though they shouldn't have done. would he please now, to calm things down, simply apologise to the businesses down there for the mistakes thus made so far, and promise that he's going to improve the performance of his department on this important project significantly from now on?
Reply, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. Obviously, I apologise for the delays that are caused, and we will work to minimise those delays. Those delays are 9 weeks over a two-year project. There have been problems with the designer, with the design of the concrete. They are now resolved, and we will work with businesses absolutely to minimise, as I say, disruption. And so we will work hard, and we will gain that 9 weeks back.
Supplementary, Mr. Baker.
Thank you, Mr. President. Would the Minister agree with me that the easy option here would have been not to take on this challenge of addressing Douglas Promenade, and that actually this administration is about actually getting things done, and that right now we've started, we're part way through. This is the toughest time, but the vision is worth progressing for. And would the Minister confirm that this has been undertaken by a private contractor? It isn't the DOI that's actually doing all this work. It's a private contractor.
Through the chair, please.
And that a lot of the issues that have arisen are a legacy of things that have been done over the past 50, 60, 70 years, the way things were done on the island, and that we're actually uncovering all these, and actually we've got to hold our nerve, we've got to work together, we've got to engage with businesses, we've got to engage with the Department for Enterprise in terms of supporting those businesses. We've got to work with the local corporation, who are very keen to actually have this work done, which will be fantastic when it's done. And we've got to hold our nerve, and actually, in any major construction project, challenges abound, and it's how you handle them that's the key thing, and that we must press on. We mustn't ignore the challenges, we mustn't pretend they don't exist, but we've got to work together to deliver it collaboratively in the best long-term interests of the island.
I don't think there was a question there, but...
Yeah, no, there absolutely is, and I think it highlights that because I want to really...
for you.
Yeah.
Does he agree?
Yeah, but I think there's an important point that I do want to come down to, because partly I didn't. I want to go into the detail of the Honourable Member for Douglas East on one of the issues. So, let's be blunt about it. Okay, it's an old promenade that had no significant drawings of many of the services. So the only way you can deal with a lot of the work is through trial holes. When you detail a trial hole, it may be in a specific location in one place, but actually a few centimetres higher, a foot difference makes all the difference in terms of design. So each time that has to be redesigned and redetailed. Now, so it's not possible to know what you don't know, and it's only when you're dealing with the project that you deal with it and you resource up, which is why I've been committed to resourcing up the design work, and that's what we have. And I do think this is a private contractor that's doing the work. We have initiated the work. There's a designer and a contractor involved, and that's very important but it's also probably one of the toughest times, and I do agree with the member, we do have to hold our nerve, because we all said we wanted to do it, we all knew it was going to be tough, and now's the time to actually resolve, to commit, to get it done, to resolve the issues, to learn the lessons that need to be learned and to move forward.
Final supplementary, Ms August Hanson.
Thank you, Mr President. I sympathise with the Minister, because it was always going to be a disruptive process, as he says. But from the start, would it not have been sensible to pull together a working group cross-government to work phase by phase with the private contractor, between highways and other government stakeholders like DHA and fire services, for example, Enterprise, DEFA, Treasury, the constituency MHKs, as the project managed to its conclusion? Because as he says, it is a big project, and it doesn't only affect DOI. So I suggest, as he says, it may mitigate disruption and also provide a bit more communicative effectiveness.
Thank you. Yeah, yes, but there's a misunderstanding. There's project coordination groups. There's a project political steering group. There are people being brought together. There are designers coming together. Obviously, as a project progresses, you learn from things that have happened within the project. But don't be under any misunderstanding. There's a significant cooperation between all the utilities and the contractor and the department.